Good afternoon. Thank you very much for stopping by. I am Mr. Trung Hoang. I come from VinaCapital Ventures, and today I'm going to give you an update on the VinaCapital Ventures, an opportunity of Vietnam in the startup community, and also our action plan going forward. Our session will be in 45 minutes, and I hope that I can cover it in 30 minutes and save the ground for 10 minutes for Q&A. So let me start with the VinaCapital Ventures. There is a significant gap between the larger corporation in Vietnam and the startup, where the startup, they have the innovation in their gene, but then the larger corporation, they have the scale and they have all the resources, but they lack of innovation. So we believe that we can have the good conduit to connect the two together to create the larger ecosystem or the new digital ecosystem for Vietnam. That's why we launched the venture capital investment in VinaCapital. We in the market since 2007, so we are one of the longest VC arm in the market as of now. We've seen all of the entrepreneurship wave in Vietnam back in 2007 as of now. We learned our lesson, both failure and success. And we have the combination of both the professional operation and also from the industrial banking investment. Our previous fund, the DFJ VinaCapital, which was the joint venture between Dr. Fisher Jefferson and VinaCapital. We launched it back in 2007, and we divested in 2018. We were able to return up to 3.8 times of the principal to our investor. The IRR is around 17.5%, but we are in the top 3 across Asia for VC fund during that vintage, which can return money profitable to our investor. Our team is a combination of international professional, local Vietnamese with international exposure, and the local Vietnamese. Don is the managing partner. He also the CEO of VinaCapital Group. He and I launched DFJV back in 2007. And then we also have Richard, he's sitting there, joining us. Has a background of the investment banker back in the United States. Also has exposure to Southeast Asia, Thailand, and Vietnam. And the other team has a variety of background from M&A, strategy, capital market consulting, and investment. During our 17 years in Vietnam, we have a large network of partners, which is selected of Philip Drosler from Europe, Tim Draper from the United States, and also for the local corporate business community from FPT Group or Novaland Group. We also have connected to the other organization in Vietnam in terms of startup and innovation community, locally and also internationally. Partnership is key to help us be successful for the past 17 years. We spend time to build 5 pillars which we think are very helpful to define the ecosystem for startup innovation in Vietnam. On top of it, you'll see that regarding the partnership, the first fund we work with DFJ, the second fund we work with Mirae Never Asset. But also there are the 4 pillars, which is from the business community. As mentioned before, startup will need the platform in order to scale. So the business community is where the startup can really bring in what the product and service and to join create the economy of scale and to join the economy. The corporation is also where it can be the potential exit for a startup in Vietnam. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you never heard of such a name like Vingroup of retail, but nowadays they start to be the conglomerate and start to absorb technology in Vietnam. Regarding the startup community, we work closely with all of the accelerator and incubator, to form the early stage startup ecosystem. For example, we work with Zone Startup from Canada. It's part of Ryerson Futures. So the startup will have the exposure internationally. The experience not only come from Vietnam, but also come from around the globe to see what is the real application for technologies which can be used into the economy. We also have the interface with Hub Global, which is an incubator for blockchains in the north of Vietnam, where we have exposure to more than 27 blockchain opportunity in Vietnam nowadays. The other two pillars, which is government and university. University is where we can find the human resources for the startup. University where also we can find the R&D activities which can be used either in the new business initiative or which can be integrated into this startup. And government, because of Vietnam, you heard about the update earlier today from Mike and from our colleague. The legal framework is not really there for Vietnam yet. So there's a lot of things the startup community have to catch up with the regulatory framework. So that's how we have the interface with the government, is to help, not by influencing the government, but to showcase what happening around the region and around the globe for the startup to implement, or at least to have the sandbox to try their solution and services. So all of these five have been fully integrated, which we have us for the past 70 years to be one of the very unique platform with the longest lifetime and success in Vietnam. Since 2018, we start V2 with the VinaCapital Ventures, and we've been able to deploy up to 21.2 million USD into 16 investment in many interesting sectors of the digital economy of Vietnam. We're starting from media, e-commerce, to insurtech, logistics, transportation, proptech, and also the blockchain. We also have the exposure to about 55 indirect investment. Why is that indirect? Because we work with accelerator here, the hub and zone startup. So we don't invest directly in the early stage company. We more focus on sweet spot, more on the pre-series A up to series B. Our average ticket size is about 1.5 million USD. And then we prefer to have the full investment from 1 to 3 million in all of the company during their life cycle. So on top of the list, so we have duty cash, for example. It's a cross-border transaction. As you see, the domestic consumption of Vietnam is increasing. They also want to have, now they also have the requirement for buying merchandise items outside of Vietnam. And there's a lot of things is very unclear or not transparent for the local people down here. For example, payment. If you don't have the credit card, you cannot pay. The duty or tax cross-border is very complicated. So duty cash provide a platform for local people. They can pay by Momo, any local payment services. And then you know all of the costs upfront. You buy from Amazon US, you buy from Sephora from South Africa, everything you can check out one click. So this is a very interesting platform which we have to connect Vietnam to the world. Other companies like Envoy, for example, they really change the transportation of Vietnam. Envoy have the biggest platform which onboard all the bus operators in Vietnam. They also have solution for bus station in Vietnam. And during the COVID time, Envoy helped the transportation department of Vietnam to track for all of the movement of the passengers, really help Vietnam to build a database to control COVID. And nowadays, they also open the API interface. So people from India, people from the United States can also book the ticket, the bus ticket, before they can travel to Vietnam. So they have everything. They have the bus operator, the bus station, and the bus ticket channel for connecting locally and also internationally. Last but not least, let me highlight the Sytnam. This is one of the new areas we venture in. Sytnam is the very first crypto bank originating from Switzerland. They operate out from Singapore here. And we have an opportunity to work with them in order to penetrate into the traditional business with banking, but then for the new type asset class, which is crypto and other digital asset, NFT and everything. A lot of people may ask why we venture into that, why Vietnam is not legalized yet. So we just want to be ahead of the curve. Since we define ourselves as a technology investor, we just want to know the technology and be well prepared when the country is ready. So far, so good. Is there any question? If you have, it's make it two ways.
One question. So
sure.
Most of the companies are raising. Are they all doing up rounds?
Oh yes, I'll cover this later. Okay. So let me just spend some more time with the portfolio. All of the company we are investing as of now, luckily that they are building the market leading position. You will hear about home-based tomorrow, which is the real estate financing. It is the very first big time in Vietnam, which will help the Vietnam younger population can really own the house, which is a dream. But now you cannot because you have to save a lot of money. When you save enough, the price per house already will increase. And home-based will have a solution for it. Global Care, for example, is another example which they help to revamp the whole insurance industry in Vietnam. It's not the platform for insurer to sell policy. It helps all of the master merchants like Grab, like Vietnam Mobile World to design the product for themselves and to sell that product or to provide the service for their customer. So Global Care can help to connect to insurers, help to the master network to have their own product and can serve down the line to all the end consumer or customers. And from here, we also have exposure to international players like Validus. So we invest in Validus Singapore, which is a pioneer in SME financing. And SME, you heard from Mike earlier today, that's the backbone of the Vietnam at the moment, contribute for more than 60% of the GDP. But they lack of way or means to access to the capital. So Validus help them to provide the source of capital for them to scale up. In all of these companies, we proudly to connect them to the largest partners in the country so they can penetrate faster, they can really build a scale. The loyalty program platform like YourBox is right here. It serves all the largest corporations in Vietnam, such as the Vietnam Airlines, the HD Bank, and the Vietcom Bank. They're also penetrating into the new ways of financing for the employees, the employee benefit of these larger corporations here. Yes, just go to Chris' questions. If all of the companies they are raising up round, the answer is yes. They all raise up round, and in total, they are raising 175 million USD as of today. And we hope that they can all close in the next 2 to 3 months, even though the market is going down, but this is very positive side from the fund. Our current MOAC is 1.5 times. And as I said, our average check size is 1.5 million, and we are continuing to deploy. In the next 4 months, we have 4 very attractive deals, and we want to deploy money into. The first one, Agritech, and we are working with Kasikorn Bank for it. This is a platform to change all of the current wet market, how they're working in Vietnam. And you know that the GTMT, the GTMT in Vietnam right now is about 86-40%, and actually web market is still there. There's lots of inefficiency need to be sorted out, and this agri-tech company have the solution to change or disrupt all of that. There's the blockchain's platform. For blockchains, our investment thesis is very much anything around structure, infrastructure. We don't go into crypto, we don't go into NFT and so, but very much infrastructure. We like Sytnum because it's a bank infrastructure. The blockchain company we look into is similar to the trading platform for blockchain. We invest in Meta. Previously, the logo here next to Sytnum is just the data analytic platform which will help end users in order to manage, to utilize their digital asset. So very much anything about blockchains, our investment team is infrastructure. We also have the AI ML. This is the machine learning and AI opportunity, originally from Vietnam, but the product is for the international. And fintech, one of the solution which is growing really fast in Vietnam for smaller SME. In Vietnam, for the smaller SME, it is impossible for them to convince the bank to give them the POS, the POS, the point of sales. So this company helped them first to build the credit scoring, and second one, to help them to be connected. So when tourists come or when people needs to have the payment services can be served by the platform. And then our pipeline is still very deep. The team had been spent a lot of time to screen more than 200 opportunities since January of 2022. And we still have more than 300 in the pipeline to reveal for the next fund. So with that, I'd like to bring you to the next session, which is the opportunity Vietnam introduced for the startup innovation. And we think that there are tremendous opportunity for Vietnam to have another unicorn, or that will be the nest of the next unicorn. Why is that? You heard from Ben and company earlier today that Vietnam will have the GDP of more than 370 in the next 8 years, which result in more than 250 billions value will be generated. And technologies play a very important role. Look at the picture, the lady in the rural area of Vietnam, and then she be connected. So that's a sign that technology will play a very important role and can change a lot of things. But from the outside, you see that Vietnam very inefficient. You see that the total factor productivity is not very attractive. The incremental capital output ratio is not very attractive. Again, the general trade and modern trade allocation is not there. The waste in the logistics is 25%, which is very high. But for us, we do see it as an opportunity. Why? Because there's no such the dominator in Vietnam yet. And there's a real pain point. So that's how the startup can come out with solution and can help to fill the gap. Vietnam is ready as the online first, a mobile first country with the large penetration of mobile phone, with the internet, with the smartphone. People spend a lot of time on the internet and using mobile phone for their daily activities. And we also have advantage of the median age. Vietnam population is young. I don't just want to repeat what my colleagues have been presented. Here I just want to highlight about two things. That's about the literacy. People are ready, they're young, ready to go out, work, and to spend because of middle income class is increasing. And it's increasing fast, which will boost up the domestic consumption. The urbanization is also very high, and the influx of the FDI, which will help Vietnam to be ready to capture in a large opportunity in many economy sectors, which here we can identify a few just for your reference. Financial service, banking, it's only 6% of the total bank servicing the rural. So which will leave about 60% of the population underbanked on non-bank. And then it's still very much around the cash economy. That is an area, fintech is very attractive and has been very hot for the past few years. You heard the name about VNPay, Momo, and Zalo Pay, and so. Then healthcare, which we value about 17 billion USD, again, hospital only in the largest city, and the cost of pharmacy is very high for the rural area. For media, it's only about the traditional media where you talk about TV, print magazine, but then all the people being on the internet as presented before. So this is an area there's a lot of opportunity upside for the media entertainment company. Retail, the distribution, 8660 for GTMT, is again, there needs to be change and need to be improved. Anything customer facing and also the supply chain logistics will be a huge opportunity for Vietnam, which we think is about 170 billion USD value right now. And last but not least, the logistic cost is 25% of the GDP, which is very high, and also very fragmented. There's a lot of dead miles, and there's a lot of carbon dioxide need to be emitted from the all of the activities. So this is an area we think there's both ESG and also for the economic value generation is very attractive for Vietnam. Overall, we've seen that Vietnam is having a pattern of the waterfall, which the country only enjoy for around 100 years during the development. So it starts with Japan, let's go to the 4 Asian tiger and in China, and now we see it in the Southeast Asia and especially for Vietnam. Regarding the investment landscape, Vietnam has been attracted a lot of venture capital since 2018. You see on the chart, it keeps climbing up from 4.3, and as of now, it's 11%. It's only ranked after Singapore and Indonesia, and it's keep growing up. In terms of the investment funding, the total number of deals and the size of deals, we see that the CAGR between 2017 up to 2021 is about more than 100%. And for the total 165 deals as of 2021, which reached 1.4 billion USD in total, we see that there is a shift of the check size as the economy grows. We see the larger check size is needed in order to have for the capital growth. So we foresee going forward, all of these companies will go from the bottom with the investment size less than 3 million. We go up here, and that will be the good opportunity for us going forward. Us here, VinaCapital Ventures. In terms of the deal allocation, you will see Vietnam is quite complex at the moment. You have all types of structure. You have from seed, pre-seed, and also for the formats, including convertible note, debt, and straight equity. The allocation so far is still very much focused on the fintech and e-commerce, but we see edtech is start to attract investment. And on top of the list, we start to see ESG and food tech. In our portfolio company, we also have a company name called Legalized, which is help to connect shipper to customer, and then to reduce the dead miles and to reduce the carbon dioxide emission into the atmosphere. It's an area of it's growing in Vietnam. As I said, the check size, you see is here, the CAGR is more than 40%, even though during the COVID time, it doesn't reduce much. And we start to see it increasing again. That's why going forward, we will see that the large capital we need for the growth capital, which is VC growth going forward. The check size will be from 7 to 10 millions. And that there will be a very strong pipeline for Vietnam, especially after this time when all the companies has been through the difficult time and they start to enjoy the more favorable market condition. Yes, before I go forward with our action plan, is there any questions? I can just press on. Okay, good of that. We plan to deploy our current fund by January 2023, and then we go down the road for the new fund, which was aimed for 100 million USD. We focus more on the growth capital, where our check size larger. The current funds from 1 to 3. The new fund we aim from 3 to 7. We focus more from after Series A up to the pre-IPO, and beside the all of the sector I just mentioned before, we also identify other new sector which we think we have the big contribution to the growth of Vietnam. First and foremost, that will be food, agriculture. Food waste in Vietnam today is very high, and the access to capital from farmers is very low. So that's an area we always want to look into. Blockchain, definitely. Vietnam has a lot of good engineers. They start with game, but now they start to use blockchains into other areas of the industry. And we see it here, the cybersecurity. Cybersecurity attack in Vietnam is really high. And with the larger corporation coming to Vietnam, everybody you are using mobile phone, definitely that's an area will have a good impact. And we want to find opportunity in order to tackle it. Food tech, Vietnam is an agricultural country, and then it'll be the export country for the next 10 years. So agricultural and exporting will need to have a good yield, and more the productivity needs to be improved. That's an area we think that Vietnam there's an advantage. And from that alone, we foresee about 40 billion value can be generated. Last but not least, the renewable energy. We're not talking about producing EV, electric cars here, because VinFast have already done that. But we also can look into the battery technology. We look into the infrastructure technology, how you can write software to manage energy to be more efficient, or how you can connect whatever the transmission to the consumption of technology. So all of that thing fall down under our mandate. And how can we win? Again, just go back to the history. We've been here a long time. We shake hands with a lot of entrepreneurs and founders. We learn our lesson by burning our hand in the bad ways, not in the good way. That means we've seen the failure. So we have the very rigorous investment process from screening, from selecting the company. We're very selective. We only want to work with the high growth, low light assets business. And we will add value into the investment, very hands-on in all of the investment. And we've been through the process of acceleration, helping the company to M&A, the trade sales, and also IPO. So we're very confident that with your help, with our deep connected to Vietnam, if we join hands, we can be successful together in investing in the startup innovation in Vietnam. So now I just said background for Q&A, if you have any. Sure.
So, a lot of people think that Vietnam's got some very good coders and been very successful internationally in the gaming business. And obviously VN Games has obviously been a success, but then other people think that there is an element of Vietnam's good at creating stuff for Vietnam that has problems in terms of providing a solution which can be used on a regional and a global basis. Is that an unfair criticism? And when you're talking about unicorns, what sort of businesses do you think that are here that are going to be able to leap into the international marketplace?
Yeah, I think that's there are two angles to look into that. If you look from the angle of technology, Vietnam doesn't own any proprietary technology which you have to change the world like Israel or like Korea. So I'm not talking about exporting technology. But Vietnam, with 100 million population, is large enough with all of the real pain points. So unicorn here in the sense that it can generate enough value from the country perspective. And then that can be replicated into the more lower emerging markets rather than just go backward to more advanced country. I give you an example. When we invest in year one back in 2008, that's what the very first platform in Vietnam, which would help Vietnam to build the digital content. And since Vietnam is young, the population is young, the digital media is the only way they can entertain at that time. And we find ways that Vietnam will export digital content in the universal format, similar to Tom and Jerry, for example. You don't need language, you don't need lots of local music, and then can really be entertained by people around the world. So the cost of the production in Vietnam is cheap. You can just tap to the larger platform like YouTube, like Facebook, to distribute it. So that's one way we can export Vietnam content to the world. But in terms of technology, for you to disrupt, the education must be somewhere. So I can only see it from Silicon Valley, from UK, from other more advanced countries. You can develop the technology. Vietnam is very much focused on the pain point locally and generate the value for the cross of the economy. 22 billion right now for the, according to Bain's early today, is for the digital economy. Overall is about 300 billion, so I think it's large enough to be unicorn. Unicorn look into the valuation of a company more than 1 billion, not that go from here and try to sell it back to the more advanced countries.
Sorry, another question.
Sure.
So, in your new fund, you talk about A and B, which is obviously more startup stage, but you also mentioned IPO. And normally IPOs obviously happen at the later stage, the growth stage. And is that because you think there's a good opportunity to list these companies in the Vietnamese market or somewhere else at that early stage?
Yes, I leave it the IPO because they're the path to go there. Not that we will invest in pre-IPO, but we do have partners from our side. For example, in our current fund, we do have lots of queries for the company we already invested in before. And now they start to go on the roadshow, mobilize more growth capital to go IPO. And we have chance to participate because they know us, they want to work with us. But we cannot invest in, say, 100 millions or 50 millions, but we can help our partner to syndicate that. Since we know the company, we know the founder, we know what they can do, we can be a very good local eye and ears for our partner to participate in the IPO or pre-IPO round of that company, not that we invest directly into IPO. June.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for your presentation. I saw one the chart showing that the most of the investment per ticket size, in terms of the ticket size, is less than 3 mil. And all above 3 to 10 is significantly smaller in terms of number compared to the less than 3. Any opinion that the reason behind?
So you said the largest is the bottom is less than 3 millions? Exactly. Yes. Because Vietnam is a startup, I think they were very new. So now all of the fund, you will surprise us, before COVID, there are more than 100 VC funds circling around Vietnam. The majority of them just parachute in and try to grab opportunity here. So because they are not on the ground, so they they want to have exposure, but they want to take a lot of risk. So they kind of prefer to go for the seed round or the early round in Vietnam. And you see there's a lot of capital have been poured into this during since 2017 as of now. But gradually, all of these companies will migrate, and when they grow up with the economy, and also the VC, they start to have deeper connection with Vietnam. They start to cut a larger check size and use, and I expect that if the company survive through all of this, they will need the larger check size. And company, when they are here, they know the founder, they can crack into the business community, they will cut the larger check size, and they expect that will be bigger, the pie will be bigger in the future for Vietnam. But for now, they are very much focused on the incubator, the accelerator, and then just want to test the market. That's why they just chip in 100K, 200K, 500K, it's all around this area.
So what's your relationship with Neva or your strategic partners? How does that work?
Yes, they are current our anchor LP for VinaCapital Ventures, the V2. Yeah, the current fund.
And will they be anchoring the second one?
We have not discussed it with them yet. For the V3, since we look toward the larger check size, we want to find anchor LP, which is more on VC growth or PE, because the exit type zone will be shorter, and the risk will be less. So actually, the IRR we expect will also be more modest compared to what we are working on right now.
And the raisings you've got going on in your current portfolio, is a lot of that happening with regional funds?
Yeah, this is a combination. For the fintech company, for example, they have the exposure in Singapore, so they have approach from Japan and Singapore. But the smaller one, like An Vui, we also raise fund from the local fund in Vietnam. Yeah, but the larger check size always come from outside of Vietnam. Sure.
So you mentioned you invest in the emerging technology like blockchain and things like that. But like in Vietnam is a favorite place for other countries like Japan to outsource their IT service. But when it comes to high-tech workers like AI, MLs, and things like that, Vietnam had been there yet in order to take care of that advanced technologies. So what are your criteria to evaluate the potential of a deal and then to make an investment decision?
All right. So, yeah, sure, thanks. There are three things we always look at before we proceed. First and foremost, the founding team. Where they're from, why do they have that passion, why can they solve it? That's the very first checkbox we want to do, we want to work on. Second one is the product market fit. Is it necessary to have such a product? Are you willing to pay for it? And last but not least, the scalability. Can the product be scaled? Is it scalable locally, or it can go regionally? So that's the very first three things we want to find out in the very first 30 minutes of meeting. If we cannot clear it, we will move on to new deal. But of course, we have a longer list. Once it passes.
Just a follow-up to that, I think because machine learning is so technical,
Yeah.
if you don't have domain knowledge, how on earth can you really evaluate it?
Yeah, when I say we evaluate, doesn't mean that we evaluate because of our network, the selected partners we shown before, they've been there, done that. So we do have the network of people we can bring in, or we can ask for consultant to help us to do the DD on technology. Yeah. For technology, we do deep DD, but normally when we talk about the market, we talk about financial, whatever, our team can cover it. Yeah, I think we have another 2 minutes, so if you have any other questions, if not, then thank you very much for your time, and we hope that we can see you around when we have new fund or welcome you as our LP for the new fund. Thank you very much.